Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. On the show, Trump now says he will delay massive ICE raids planned for 2 weeks. We'll take a look at that emerging threat and how it could have been stymied by this new report coming out just hours ago. AOC fires back and take a look at the whole concentration camp fiasco that played out this week and who was really right and who was really wrong. My answer's not going to surprise you there. A possible full-blown war with Iran, 2 very exciting insurgent candidates, and what we need to be focusing on is growing, not destroying the Democratic and progressive base. A great article on the subject by Naomi Klein. Naomi Klein, shout out to her for doing some obviously amazing work as usual. So, yeah, credit to her for that. But now we will talk about ICE, baby. ICE, baby. So just hours after Donald Trump, defended his order for nationwide raids by ICE to deport thousands of families on Sunday, Donald Trump reversed course, actually, and said that raids would be delayed by 2 weeks, pending negotiations possibly between Democrats and Republicans. So it looks like he is going to try and do that. So, I mean, everyone, he always likes to say that, we shouldn't tell our enemy, because I know obviously he thinks the illegal immigrants are the enemies in the situation, which is, again, another one of his many, many great flaws. But he's obviously, we can tell the enemies what we're going to do. It looks like he has decided to do this, and he is now saying that things are off. I mean, should we trust it? I mean, we don't know, but still there obviously kind of has been heartwarming pushes for awareness for these people who may be targeted in upcoming raids that are like in New York City and Los Angeles, all these major cities that could be raided tomorrow, really. We now know that they may not be happening. He says, at the request of the Democrats, I've delayed the illegal immigration removal process deportation for 2 weeks to see if Democrats and Republicans can get together and work out a solution to the asylum loophole problems at the southern border. If not, deportations start. He says, the raids have been planned for 10 major cities on Sunday. Before Trump's announcement on Saturday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi issued a statement calling on Trump to start his heartless plan to immigration raids. And this is, again, comes as we continue to find more and more interesting stuff about, really horrifying stuff about these, pretty much, again, I'll say it, concentration camps that these people have been kept in. And it is really an absolute disgrace that these have happened. I mean, you really hate to see this kind of, it makes you really ashamed to be in America. Like, these people who are coming to our country to mostly, again, I'm not denying the fact that there are bad people coming, but it is by no real measure a majority of the people. Most of these people are good people. Most of these people want a better life, and that fact alone should be very eye-opening, very disturbing to anyone who may not be aware of how we're treating these people. And yeah, I do want to get to this very important. We'll cover this whole fiasco with the concentration camps and what's really going on in a little bit. But tomorrow is Sunday. And as many leaders of people of faith who attend religious services, the president has ordered heartless raids. It's my hope that before Sunday, leaders of the faith-based community and other organizations that respect the dignity and worth of people will call upon the president to stop this brutal action, which will tear families apart and inject terror in dark communities, Pelosi said. So it looks like her calls have been, for the most part, answered, which is good. Good thing she was able to kind of stop this horror from taking place, something we really needed her to do. Because she is obviously the top, as much as it may scare any progressives or leftists in any way, shape, or form. She is the top leader of the Democratic Party. She is the face of the Democratic Party, the very senile face, but still the face nonetheless of the Democratic Party. So it's important that we have her at least doing something to stop these raids, these massive roundups of terrorized families and terrorized people to these camps, which we'll find out more about. So anyway, earlier in the day, before leaving Camp David, Trump told reporters at the White House the raids would soon begin. These are people that come into the country illegally. They've been served. They've gone through a process of courts, and they'll have to be removed from the country. They will be removed from the country, Trump said, according to CNN. Trump's constant strategy of dictating irrational or inhumane threats only call him off at the last minute and claim victory is becoming increasingly common as he eyes re-election in 2020 and obviously his falling poll numbers. In addition to temporarily calling off raids which were widely condemned by human rights groups, Democrats, or pretty much anyone with a sense of decency, like just reading the way he wrote the announcement of the raids should give any person with like decency and the desire to see quality treatment of all human beings, it should send a chill up their spine, because this is absolutely not the way we should have. Like, literally any person should be conducting themselves. Is absolutely scary, absolutely very horrifying, and quite disturbing to think that this is the way that these people could possibly be treated. Like, it's very tough. So, so Trump has also threatened to close the U.S.-Mexico border, impose tariffs on all goods imported from Mexico, and we'll get into a minute. Very exciting, folks. He may attack Iran. It's great, and the fact that these things are happening, how he likes to create his own problems and then solve his own problems just to make himself look better. It's a very dangerous game, and sometimes it's going to fall flat on the face. And mark my words, I think it's very, 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 very possible it could happen with Iran. It's going to fall flat onto his face and lead to a huge, huge crisis for the country, and especially for him, especially if it goes with Iran. It's only going to end up looking worse. So, so all this it's very, very horrifying, very, very disturbing, to say the least, because we don't know what's going to be able to happen here. So, we're more than ever, I think, really in this administration. This is the part to me, like, I think it's been debatable because a lot of people forget how bad George W. Bush was because we didn't have what felt like a perpetual freakout mode. But this guy, he screwed up Hurricane Katrina to epic proportions, causing thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dead. He obviously did the Iraq War, he did tax cuts, a myriad of just awful, awful things, and like he was pretty bad. To my mind, up until this point, worse than our current president. But I think he's at a crossroads now, Trump is, where he can either be worse or slightly better. And I think that all depends on how he handles the immigration thing and the Iran thing. So if he keeps us out of this war, despite really what is obviously very clearly and transparently the best efforts of Mike Pompeo and of what's his name, John Bolton, Mr. Mustache. If he is able to keep us out of this situation, or those two situations, and not just brutalize the immigrants left and right and make pretty much a large portion of the country hate him, then he probably will be, I consider, maybe better. I mean, this could be a little bit of a controversial take with some Democrats, but like, think about the things that George W. Bush did. Like, the horror he caused inhumanity. He was way more unpopular than Trump when he left, and that is, I think, for a very, very good reason. And since everything is so chaotic today, that we forget about that. We normalize George W. Bush, and that is to our great, great hurt, in my opinion. Great, great hurt. So the nationwide ICE raid, which would have targeted, again, 2,000 families who have received deportation orders in 10 U.S. cities, including Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, and Houston, was so unpopular that not even his acting Secretary of Homeland Security appeared to be on board. According to the Washington Post, Nick Myroff, acting DHS Secretary Kevin McLennan, had urged ICE, which is part of the agency he runs, to conduct a more targeted operation that would focus on, say, 150 families instead of thousands, and just have news cameras and images of screaming babies being dragged out of their homes with crying mothers, stuff like that. Like, that's just awful. It's horrible. It's something you cannot do without looking like an absolute monster of a person. You just can't. McLennan has warned that an indiscriminate operation to arrest migrants in their homes and at work sites risk separating children from their parents in cases where children are at daycare, summer camp, or friends' houses. He also has maintained that ICE should not devote major resources to carrying out a major interior sweep while telling lawmakers it needs emergency funding to address the crisis at the U.S. border. So Trump reportedly bypassed McLeenan and dealt directly with acting ICE director Mark Morgan and other ICE officials regarding the details of the raid when Trump first announced it on Twitter last Monday. In that tweet, Trump praised Mexico and Guatemala for committing to help curb the number of migrants that originate in or migrate through those countries on their journey to seek asylum in the U.S. And again, why are they seeking asylum? What is their drive for doing so? What is the problem there? We need to examine that, I think, and that could help us stem the things that are pushing migrants away from their home countries and forcing them to make what is objectively a horrifying trip through hell. That says it is hell for them. Why would they want to go do that? It's because things are seriously bad. And why are things seriously bad? I mean, it comes back to U.S. imperialism, U.S. coups of democratic elected leaders that they did not like and wouldn't be subservient to the United States. Those things, those roots, I guess you could say, those are what's driving this today. You can go back, you can trace it, and that's why, folks, history is so important. Two DHS sources say deportations were canceled for two reasons. The plans leaked to the media and were not enough space to detain and arrest migrants before the deportations. So I asked Julian Castro about this. This is Benjamin Pooh, an NBC reporter. He asked Julian Castro about the tweet announcing the legislation. He called the incident, calls this incident and the waving off of the Iran strike as bullshit politics. Castro said people need to see through that and see that this guy is a political con man. So that is interesting. So yeah, I love how he says the asylum loophole problems at the U.S. At the southern border of the U.S. The asylum loophole, that's literally long accepted, long established international law. So that's the important thing. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, Trump announced this on Monday, and AOC got herself in a little bit of hot water with some idiots talking about how these camps that these people are being held in, they're concentration camps. They're concentration, and people, understandably so, I have to say, to the average person out there, they're going to obviously go immediately to Nazi death camps, but I think it's important, if you look up concentration camp definition, and we're looking it up, a place where numbers of people, especially political prisoners, or members of persecuted minorities, are deliberately imprisoned in a relatively small area with inadequate facilities, key word there, sometimes to provide forced labor or await mass execution. Those would be death camps. The term is most strongly associated with several hundred camps established by the Nazis in Germany occupied Europe through 1933 to 45. The most, among the most famous being Dachau, Belsen, and Auschwitz. So yeah, obviously, that's understandably what the mind goes to when you think of that. It's Auschwitz, it's Birkenau, it's all those awful things. But this is, again, this is not the time through history that concentration camps were used. They were used not just to kill people, but to put them into work, put them into really awful situations. It's right there in the definition. So give credit to AOC for coming out and coming and saying that on Instagram and doing this whole thing. And I know we didn't cover this story, unfortunately. But we are going to follow it, because this week in bad discourse, politicians and media have been obsessing over the semantics of concentration camps. To be more precise, whether the forced internment or legal asylum seekers in despicable conditions on the U.S. southern border constitute a concentration camp, and whether or not the definition is offensive to survivors of Nazi concentration camps during World War II. So The face of this controversy, once again, was the freshman representative, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as we already discussed, who correctly identified the border holding facilities as concentration camps. GOP and other